Every year, fans are interested to see who's going to be selected at the top of the NBA draft. Bringing in the next great young player is the simplest method for fan bases to convince themselves that they hold the golden ticket for future postseason success. When a player isn't instantly playing at the greatest level, some impatient fans will use buzzwords like bust or overrated to describe him. But the reality is that everyone matures at a different rate. But it goes even farther than that. A top 5 selection does not always imply all-star or greater status. To demonstrate this, we are going to examine 4 decades of top 5 picks to see what reasonable expectations the fan bases should have. In this video, we'll look back at the inaugural NBA draft after the NBA-ABA merger in 1976. Each segment will cover 10 drafts, with the most recent 18 or so drafts featuring current players. The statistical output was reduced as of December 28, 2021 for the sake of those who are still playing. The players' career averages will be broken down by decade, demonstrating what a top 5 pick would yield from decade to decade. While this does not account for some of the best players over the last half century, like Kobe Bryant and Dirk Nowitzki because they were picked outside of the top 5, there's been enough to appreciate relatively about drafting high.
With the 13th pick in the 1996 NBA Draft, the Charlotte Hornets select Kobe Bryant from Lower Merion High School.
So, let's take a look at the history of the top 5 NBA draft picks from 1976 through 1985. Going all the way back to the beginning of the modern period demonstrates how enormous some top 5 pick expectations can be. The league did not go 5 for 5 in terms of future All-Stars or better in any of the 10 groupings. One of the classes of 1976 produced no players who would go on to receive such honors. The decade was not without its high points. 11 of the 50 players chosen in the various top 5s went on to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. In terms of assists, Magic Johnson ranks 6th all-time. Many consider Michael Jordan to be the greatest player of all time. Kevin McHale, Isaiah Thomas, and others are around the list of potential future stars. Regardless, the trio would average only 15.5 points, 6.14 assists, and 2.89 rebounds per game through the rest of their tenure. Misses happen, even when there are so many all-time great players in these classes. 12 of the 60 players would play fewer than 500 games throughout their careers. Doug McDermott has already played in more than that in his entire career so far. Some believe that this is because it was before the commencement of what many regard to be the golden age of the 1990s, and that the next decade will be fairer to the analysis. Up first, we have 1986 to 1995. The good news is that the overall totals for each statistical category increased from 1986 to 1995, despite the terrible death of Len Bias, which resulted in only 49 players for this sample. Nonetheless, the averages fell in comparison. This trio averaged 14.6 points per game, 6.10 assists, and 2.89 rebounds per game. So what exactly happened? Since 1986, only one player has made an All-Star team. Brad Daugherty. The first overall pick was a 5-time All-Star and was named to the All-NBA third team once. Chuck Person, the Rookie of the Year, was the only other player in the top 5 to receive an award. The other 3 picks, including Bias, combined for 510 games, whereas Daugherty only appeared in 548. 2 of the finest players to ever play the game, David Robinson and Scottie Pippen, arrived in 1987, while the other 3 were unable to make an All-Star appearance. When it comes to awards, the top 5 picks performed better this decade. 4 players were selected as All-Stars in 3 of the drafts. While this is an improvement over the previous section, it reinforces the premise that being drafted in the top 5 is far from a guarantee for future success. Up next, we have 1996 to 2005. The next decade's choices are a bit of a mixed bag. While the aggregate averages for the class, 14.75 points, 5.88 assists, and 3.28 rebounds per game, are roughly in line with the previous 2 generations, praise for some of the draft classes poured in. For example, the 2003 draft is widely regarded as one of the best of all time. One of the retired players, Chris Bosh, has already been inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame.
Oh, man. I want you guys to know a little bit more about me. When I was a kid, I used to take Slam magazines and I carefully rip out the pictures.
While this class may not stand out among previous draft classes, 3 of the other top 4 picks are in a lock to join Bosch, solidifying this class as a brilliant example of how smoothly a draft can go. Unfortunately, not all of the drafts were as successful. Yao Ming was the first overall pick in 2002, yet he was the only one of the top 5 to play in an All-Star game. At the very least, he made many All-Star and All-NBA teams in his path to the Hall of Fame. Only Kenyon Martin made an All-Star appearance in 2000, and that was his highest honor. Sometimes it's just chance or making up the proper choice, but there were evidence in the late 1990s and early 2000s that just because you picked high did not guarantee that you picked correctly. Up next, we have 2006 to 2015. The final decade does not disappoint for the group of classes with the smallest sample size. It's the highest scoring of the group, with some of the players having yet to reach their prime. To date, his average stat line for the decade is 15.2 points, 5.96 assists, and 3.12 rebounds per game. Even with some duds like Mario Hezonja, Dante Exum, and Anthony Bennett, among others, the most recent decade has performed admirably. That is not to argue that this is a foregone conclusion. Only one All-NBA performer, LaMarcus Aldridge, was selected in the top 5 in the 2006 draft.
With the second pick in the 2006 NBA draft, the Chicago Bulls select LaMarcus Aldridge from the University of Texas,
which was heavy on upperclassmen and international possibilities. The following year, though, was a step upward, with 2 All-NBA players and an additional All-Star. In 2008, there were highs of 2 future MVPs and another All-NBA performer, as well as the lows of 2 players who appeared to have untapped potential, Michael Beasley and O.J. Mayo. The mingling continued from there. From 2010 to 2014, each class saw 1 or 2 players named to an All-NBA team, for a total of 7 across 5 seasons. However, there were 18 first-round picks who were never able to reach the level of All-Star. For the final time, this demonstrates the need for managing expectations when you're a supporter of a rebuilding team. The importance of luck is equal to that of draft position. Coming away from a player who has been a role player for a decade is sometimes considered a gain. Well guys, thank you so much for making it to the end of the video. Be sure to smash that like button, subscribe to Tip Top Sports, and ring that notification bell so you never miss a video. I'll see you guys next time and have a great day. Peace.